And we're back for part 2 of the cylinder head shenanigans video. So the last video, we surfaced these heads, got them real good and shiny, cleaned out the chambers, got the heads just generally cleaned up. So today, oops, I was mocking stuff up. Today we are going to take the valve springs out and put new valve springs and retainers in. Should be a good video. I got another one of these thermos. This is different. This one's called Tropical Fire. What happens in Hawaii comes home with you, apparently. Thermogenic. I don't know what any of this means, but we're gonna crack that open, have a drink, and install some springs. So we have our valve spring removal tool. It's a pretty straightforward tool. It just bolts on. This is specifically for the Subarus. Basically just bolts on. And voila! Now we can take out these two springs. We've got the bolt that essentially runs along the top of this little tool, and what it's going to do, I'm going to set this on top of the retainer and then put this bolt through, and then we'll use some more power tools because power tools make the world a much happier place. And alright, now it's going to push both the spring down and the valve as well. Sometimes the valves don't push down, but if they do, we just kind of reach underneath the head and pop them back up. So there it goes. Now, let me see if I can get, since I got that in there, see if we can get a good shot of the keeper. So that is, it's going to have a really hard time focusing in there. So you can see the valve keepers are on the edge of the valve stem there. So I'm going to go ahead and use this little magnet to get in here and try to retrieve those. So there's one of them. It's a single groove keeper. You can see that. Pull that little guy out. And we grab the other keeper. And we're keeping these keepers because we're going to reuse them because they're made for these valves. So we make sure we don't want to lose those little guys. They're so small, they are easy to lose. So now we're going to go backwards with it, and everything should come right out. So now we have the tool comes off, and the retainer comes out, factory retainer, and the spring comes out, factory spring. The valve's still hanging out down there. We want to take a look at the valve seal. Now would be a great time to replace those, so I am going to do that. Let me grab some valve seals. So getting the valve seals out, it's a little tricky. I got my handy dandy valve seal pliers. No, they're actually spark plug boot pliers. And you just gotta kind of get them out. There it goes. So there's one. And I only have 15 more to go. I'm going to go ahead and pull them all out, and then we'll get the new ones back in. And there's two different types. There's the gray ones and the green ones, and one goes to the exhaust and one goes to the intake. I'm going to show you which is which in just a minute. So this might be impossible to see on the camera because I'm never going to get it to focus on them. But written on top, there's an IN and an EX. So this is, it looks like the green ones say EX on them. Yep, the green ones say EX and the gray ones say IN. I'll try to take a macro picture and see if it'll let me take a picture to show you, but I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get this camera to focus that close. Now that we've figured out which goes where, I'm going to give these guys a little drop in. and just push them down and seat them all the way down the stem. Voila. Go ahead and do the rest. Make sure they don't go on sideways or anything. Right now they're just kind of sitting over the stems, and then I'll have to press them down the last 1/8 of an inch or so. But I want to get them all staged, and then I'll kind of show you a little trick for getting them the last little bit of the way. Alright, they're all staged. Now we've got to get them pushed to the last little bit. Now I'm sure there's a few ways you could do this. I'm just going to use the same tool I used to take them out to kind of try to just give it a little bit of pressure and watch it fall into place. Beautiful. Next one. And so on and so on. You could probably use a socket. The only thing that concerns me about using like a socket around the outside of it is that you might scratch the valve stem, and that's something you really want to avoid doing. So those 4 are in. I'm going to do these 4, then those 4, and those 4, and then we'll get the springs in. So we're going to go back to our handy dandy tool and go ahead and put that guy there. I suppose before I put the tool in, I could drop all these in to their homes here. That would be fine. Just set them in place so they're ready to rock. Alright, well, they're in place now. So we need this little cup. Now this is the kind of tricky part. We have to, as I said before, we have to use the cup to push the spring down, and then we got to get these little itty bitty tiny keepers in. So that's going to take a little bit of finesse. I'm going to go get some pick tools to help me get those in place, and we'll get going on it. Alright, so here we go. Tried to get the camera into a good position. I tightened those bolts down. I know they weren't tight a second ago. Alright, so we got to start by kind of trying to line everybody up. And then we'll go ahead and exposing the keeper. Keeper's exposed, or the groove I should say. Now these little keepers go one way, they're tapered. God, this thing's never gonna focus. But they're tapered. They make a cone. So now we have to get the keepers into their home without dropping them, without losing them. And it's a very extremely tight fit. This is the hardest part. If you do it a lot, you get good at it, I'm sure. I don't do it a lot, so I am not good at it. Alright, well, I got one side in. I might try to back it out just a little bit with the one side. See if I can't get it to like, oh, nope, it didn't go in centered. This is fun. Like I said, if you do it a lot, I'm sure this is an easy job, and I'm sure that somebody is sitting there on the other side of the camera, or the other side of the YouTubes, just cringing at me, watching me do this. But gotta learn it somehow. Alright, that one's now in again. Let's see if we can... Alright, so that's in. Now I want to see if I can spin it around. Nope. Let's try to get the other side in. So I got one half of the keeper in there. Now it's time for the other half of the keeper. Again, I'm going to try to put it in with the magnet, get it into place, and then slide it down. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not. I might have to go get the engine builder. I'm not an engine builder, guys, just so you know, obviously. Well, you'd think it was obvious, but somebody might say, oh, you're building an engine. It makes you an engine builder. But just because you're doing something doesn't mean that you do it. So, here we go again. Nope, flipped over. Alright, it's down close to where I want it. We're almost there. God, the magnet's too strong. I'm thinking maybe somehow setting them in and then letting it fall. So let's try that. I'm going to come all the way out and place that one. So what we're doing is we're setting, come on, focus, setting the keepers inside the retainer. We set the retainer there. We're going to go ahead and put our cap back on, run it down, get it all lined up, and see if this works. We're going to go down slowly. The first one is installed. That was ridiculous. It was way too difficult. Like I said a minute ago, I'm sure that somebody has some secret method to doing that easier. Alright, I'm going to try to get the second one in the same way. I'm going to start the keeper in the retainer and go ahead and set it down. See if I can keep it lined up, keep my finger on it, and do this one in like a minute. So the valve came right up this time. Alright, we're falling down. Alright, the back side's pretty darn close to being where I want it. Just got to get the other side to come up just a little bit. I know you can't really see this. I'm just going to describe it because I feel like I'm winning. Although I need to get around the other side. I kind of set myself up here to not be able to work very well. So I got half of it in. I'm going to try to get the other half here. Struggling. Fighting. My buddy Charlie offered to machine these heads for me, and I was like, but it's more fun doing it on my own. And I'm sure he would have put these in for me too, and he would have made it look easy because he does heads all day long down at Aluminum Head Rebuilders in Portland, and that's who we do most of our cylinder head stuff with. Actually, pretty much all of our cylinder head stuff goes to them. Okay, after much sitting here and thinking, I have come up with a better way of doing it. One step I'm sure I was forgetting, and this is, like I said, somebody's probably cringing and screaming at me through YouTube, was assembly lube. So the keeper's in the hat and it's good and lubed up. There's lube on this on the spring retainer, and now when I go ahead and put this in here, let me rotate it so that my finger can hold both sides, both keepers at once. Put this little guy in. Now, when I struggled for a long time on the first one, struggled a little bit on the second one, going this method. I got to go back and redo the first one because I want to get some assembly lube on there. But now I can put my finger across the top of it and basically hold the keepers in place, and in theory They're just going to pop down like they just did. You can't see it. If I move my finger, I'll lose them. And then I come back up. Oh, I lost the front one. But the logic is sound, I feel like. The back one's in place. The front one fell out. So I'm going to go back down and see if I can get the front one to go into his home. Pretty dang close though on that one on the first shot. Last one took me about 3 tries of doing it. This one I almost had on the first try. Alright, let's go back down. Alright, let's get that guy in place. Basically the lube sticks it to the valve stem. And then as long as when I come back up, the valve stem's not off kilter, which this one looks like it is. There it goes. And we're in. That only took 2 tries on that one. So assembly lube, stick the keeper to the valve stem, and then it's in there. So the next 12 should go relatively quickly, now that I knocked the first 4 out of the way. So I was talking to our engine builder, and he says, "Hey, did you lap those valves in?" And I said, "No, why? Aren't they already lapped because they're just the OEM valves and the OEM spots?" And he says, "Nah, you should lap those in no matter what. It's free mods, so we're going to lap these valves." Again, we're doing this the DIY method. You could definitely take these to a machine shop and have them lap them in, and that's fine and all, but DIY is so much more fun. So here we go with hand lapping using, what is that? That is a tire valve stem, if it would focus. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time focusing today, but that's a tire valve stem chucked up in a drill, and we're going to lap some valves. And then we're going to undo all the work we did on that head and lap those ones. Alright, so we have our cylinder head, and we have this here is valve grind compound. And the engine builder just showed me how to do this. I've never actually done this before. So you take your valve, you kind of pop it up a little bit, just take a little bit of this shmoo. This is actually probably too much. And you just take a little bit around the back side of the valve. I'm going to go ahead and shmoo a couple of these because I got too much on my finger. So there's that one. We'll do this one next to it. And I probably got enough on my finger for one more. So we'll pop up one more there and shmoo that. This is going to be fun. So now what we do is take our drill that has our little valve stem, and the reason why we want this is it's flexible and it's kind of grippy, and we're going to make sure that there's no sand or anything on it because we want it to grip. And then we're just going to take this head and we're going to put it kind of at the edge of the table so that with my hand I can lift the valve while I'm using this hand to just kind of spin it. So I put some pressure on it and it's going to spin. It's going to spin the valve, and I can use this hand to give it some bounce up and down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop the valve up, and I'm going to take a quick little glance at the seat and see if it's got a nice line where the valve was spinning, and it's pretty close already. Take another look, and that's what he was telling me to look for. So let's see if we can see it here up a little bit closer. I don't think I'm going to be able to see, but basically I'm looking at the edge of the line there, and you want it to have a kind of a dull color where the valve was grinding away at it. And what this does is it gives the valve a nice, it's going to seal really well into the cylinder head, which gives us essentially more compression when the valve shuts. Lapped valves, homemade style. So what we're looking at is this little edge. It's not the top line, it's right below it, and that's the lapping that we just did. So basically the valve itself, you can see, is now shiny, and right against there is shiny, and you want it to be pretty much an even circle around there, and what that's going to tell you is that that part of the valve is going to make perfect contact with the head right there. So I took the valves out and took that out because you want to clean all this stuff out. So I just pulled the valves out real quick, and we'll get it all cleaned out and put it all back together, and then get the springs in and the retainers in and cut the O-rings in this head, because we're definitely doing the O-rings. I was kind of kicking it back and forth, but it's official. We're O-ringing it.